More of the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
All right, welcome back in. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. 5:15 is the time from the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios. If you want to call the show, 609-919-9200. I was listening to a podcast the other day. I believe it was from the Players Tribune, a podcast through them, and they had Keyon Dooling on, and he was sharing his story about how Keyon Dooling made it to the NBA and had a lot of success in the NBA, but he was battling the aftermath of being sexually abused as a child, and it was a very courageous interview, and we appreciated Keyon Dooling sharing his story, so we wanted to talk to Keyon about that, as Keyon Dooling's going to join us right now on the Zach Gelb Show to talk about his story, and also we're going to chat a little bit about the current state of the NBA with the Sixers, and then also the NBA playoffs, but it's always fun to talk to Keyon Dooling, the former NBA guard, and we appreciate him hopping on board with us right now. Keyon, haven't spoke to you in a few years, but thank you for the time, and how are you, my friend?
Hey, Zach, man, I'm doing spectacular, man. Congratulations on your sustained success, my friend. You're just growing every year, my friend. Keep up the good work.
Hey, I really do appreciate that, and I told you I was blown away by your story, because there's one thing to read about it, and when you shared your story and why you retired from the NBA the first time, it was definitely courageous, but it really did resonate with me the other day when I listened to it on that podcast. It was just a tremendous job out of you and also the person doing the interview. But just take me through that time you did get sexually abused, and just share right now what you're trying to do to get other people help that are still fighting those demons and that are trying to get that help from unfortunate things that have happened to them.
Yeah, no, Zach, thanks for, even bringing up the conversation. I was sexually abused at 7 years old, and I never dealt with it, never told anyone about it, never told my parents, never got the proper care. And so, as I went through my life, I had some challenges to overcome, not even knowing what I was going through because I compressed some of those emotions. But at 32 years old, I got triggered. Somebody, touched me inappropriately, and it triggered me, and all those memories I compressed came out. And so I suffered from PTSD, had to retire from the game. But in doing that, man, I think I found my calling, my purpose, and most of all, I found healing, not only for myself, but for others who have gone through, similar situations like myself.
So you were sexually abused when you were 7 years old, correct?
That's correct.
So 7 years old, and then you're in a bathroom all those years later, and then someone touched you from behind, and that was in a bathroom, and you were actually at dinner with your family. That moment, just take me a little bit through more than that, and then the help that you got after that moment that you call that trigger moment.
Yeah, so, the first help that I got, was through the Celtics organization and the NBA Players Association, just making sure that I got the proper care, making sure that they, that I felt supported throughout that situation. But I spent 4 days in a mental institution. In that place, I didn't find my healing. I found myself spiritually, but I didn't find my healing. And I left the mental institution and went into therapy. And in therapy, in 3 weeks of therapy, I was able to, at least heal more than I had ever healed before. Therapy was a place where I really got healing, got some tools. I got to drop some of the negative baggage off, and it was a place that, it was the gateway for my healing.
I think the number one important thing, if someone's listening out there that has been sexually abused, to understand that it's not their fault. You did nothing wrong in this situation, and neither did you that day. But for some reason, and we had Kenny Anderson on, and it's a tough thing as well to fight this, but he held it in for a long time as well. How did you hold that in? Because, that's hard for someone, and excuse my ignorance on it, it's hard to grasp how someone could hold something that is just robbed someone's innocence, how they could hold that in for so long. It's just definitely must have been tough, like you've been saying, for you emotionally.
Yeah, no, it was definitely tough. And, you don't hold it all in. Sometimes it manifests in your behaviors. And so at different points in my life, it might have been anger. At different points in my life, it might have been masking my pain through alcohol or trying to smoke that pain away. Sometimes, it manifested in being promiscuous. And so all those, detrimental behaviors, I couldn't really understand or even conquer at the moment because I didn't embrace the core of what was causing those behaviors. And so for me, it was just that learning process of, understanding that, hey, this is my experience, this is what happened to me. And then from that point, I was able to rebuild myself, work on those behaviors, understand some of my processes and why I felt the way I did and reacted the way I reacted. And then also, I had this great game of basketball that I kept getting good at, and that I, had an opportunity to, really take it to another level. And so that kept me, sane somewhat, I would say.
Now, I remember in 2012 when that article came out through Comcast Sportsnet, and it did surprise a lot of people, obviously, and you decided to go public with your story, and then over the years, you have written a book. Just with your family, when was that first time that you told your family what occurred to you when you were 7 years old?
Yep, the first time I told my wife I was in the mental institution.
Wow.
And I had to have a real talk with myself and ask myself, hey, man, how did I get here? Just a month before this, you signed a $1.4 million contract. You're in your dream job, and now you don't know. You're here in this mental institution in isolation. How did I get here? And at that point, I knew I couldn't run from my experience anymore. It was a very difficult conversation to have with my wife, especially because it happened from a teenage boy to me. And so that gave me an extra set of guilt and shameness, I would say. But she cried with me. She told me she loved me. She didn't look at me as less than a man. But she also challenged me to make sure that I tell my story so I can prevent some other kids, from having to go through this type of experience.
I understand if you don't want to answer this because it is a sensitive subject. Have you ever talked to the person that did commit this act on you, this heinous act to you?
No, I didn't. I've never gotten a chance to have that moment with him. But I've also, forgiven him because in order to move forward, sometimes you can't let those things, hold you down. We passed the statutes of limitation, so I couldn't get justice. So what I had to seek is healing. And a lot of survivors of sexual abuse may not ever get justice, criminal justice, but you do have to get that, that release so that you don't dwell in that pain and you can move forward from that experience. And that's what I got through my therapy and, through my faith and through the love of my family.
Keyon Dooling with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show, and we do appreciate him sharing his story. Hey, what would you say to someone that has been sexually abused and they're in that place right now where they're trying to get help, but they don't know how to get that help?
Well, look, 1 out of every 4 young ladies statistically, goes through it. 1 out of every 5 young men. Then there's 30% like myself who don't talk about it. So the first thing I would say is that you're not alone. There's many of us survivors who are now thriving because we've done our work. And so the first thing I would say is, tell somebody what you went through. Get the proper care that you need. Find, therapy or groups or individuals or stories so that you can see a piece of healing and see what it looks like. And just know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. If you overcome this, I just think that it just makes you more present. It makes you more purpose-driven, and it makes you more passionate about some of the things that you might so choose to do in your next phase of life. So healing does exist.
Since you've been in this situation and since you've written the book and then also had the article that was published through Comcast Sportsnet up in New England in 2012, how many people have really reached out to you? Do you get a lot of emails? Do you get a lot of tweets about people that are looking for help?
Yeah, I do. I get a lot of DM messages and things like that. I get a lot of support. I speak all over the country to, not only just mental health, but also sexual abuse. And I'm also a motivational speaker. But also I see that there's a trend, especially with men, that they're suffering in silence. And at every speaking engagement I have, there's a man who pulls me to the side and lets me know that they went through the same thing that I have gone through, but they still are unwilling to do their work, And so hopefully by reading my book and hearing my story that you can see a piece that you can be macho and you can be manly and you can have this experience early in your life and you can do your work and overcome it and not have to overcompensate with your masculinity or your anger or your physicality. You could be vulnerable enough to heal and get better and be loving and caring and protective as opposed to anger.
Since you've shared your story, how's the response been? I know you talked about the Celtics helping you out, but how has the response been from the rest of the NBA and players that you played with that didn't know this, obviously, about yourself?
Yeah, it's been mixed reviews. My really, truly good friends have embraced me, and they love me, and they support me, and they, are happy that I have, found this, new calling in my life. And then there's some guys who, are afraid of the stigmas of, whether it's mental health or sexual abuse and have distanced themselves from me. And so I don't fault them for that. I just love them from a distance. It's allowed another set of friends to come in my life to be that support system. And so, you win some, you lose some. But, at the end of the day, you still have to keep pushing forward.
Keyon Dooling with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. Let's talk some basketball. And tonight,
let's talk some hoops.
yeah, right? You got a lot with the playoffs going on. You must be happy about the Celtics last night with Kelly Olynyk putting in 26. No one saw that coming.
Well, you know what? Kelly shows up in big games. I mean, he comes from a very, well-seasoned program in Gonzaga. And he's a stretch four who can rebound. He's not afraid to mix it up and get dirty and nasty. But Isaiah did a great job of finding him, and he stepped up in a big game, and he'll always be remembered for that performance. Boston is a sports town, and they'll always remember him and embrace him for that.
Before we get and break down the Celtics and the Cavs, with many people, of course, they expect this to be a quick series. But since you mentioned Isaiah Thomas, just what he's going through right now with the loss of his sister, and just to see the way how he's producing on the basketball court, I don't know how he does it, Keyon. He's been unbelievable in these playoffs.
Yeah, so often NBA players have personal lives as well. They're not just these characters. We have personal experiences, and we have grieving and things like that we go through in our family. But still, we find a way to go out and perform and do our job and be professional and manage our emotions. And I think that's why, athletes are so, respected, because people can draw inspiration from that. And I'm just so proud of Isaiah and the way he's handling himself and conducting himself and playing basketball. It's a treat to see. It's just really a treat to see him play basketball.
When you have to deal with one of these real-life issues that are more important than the game of basketball and it comes into the locker room, how do players respond about that? Because I know that some players, they get away from the sport and they use it as their sanctuary to escape from their problems. But still, what does a player say to Isaiah Thomas when this first thing it did happen and it was an awful event that did occur?
Yeah, well, there's this misconception that, that there's a lot of separation in the athletic culture. Look, we have plane rides, bus rides, locker rooms that nobody else really can understand those type of environments. And there's so much love, so much recreation, so much mentorship, so much good things that happen in that setting. And so I know, his brothers were there for him. I know Avery Bradley has known him for years, and I know Avery's an incredible guy. But that's when you rally together. That's when you support your brother. That's when you reach out and, let them feel loved. And even sometimes, it might not be spoken words. Sometimes just, going and sitting by them and letting them know, hey, I'm here for you. Maybe going to play the video game, maybe going out to eat. But I'm sure his support system is intact. Boston Celtics has a great infrastructure, and I know he's getting the care that he needs.
Keyon Dooling with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Keyon, a lot of people, including myself, everyone's already putting the Cavs in the NBA Finals already. If the Celtics want to make this a series, what are some things that they're going to have to do against LeBron and company?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is you have to load on LeBron. You have to make him a playmaker. You can't allow him to be a scorer and a playmaker. You got to pick your poison. I think you can't really stop him from scoring. But what you can do is run these other guys off the three-point line, not give them open looks. But I just think it's destiny that the Cavs and the Warriors will meet in the finals. I think all the stars are aligning for that. I think the world wants to see that. I think LeBron is at the peak of his game, even though he's, in his, 14th season, and he seems like he's still getting better. And so I'm just going to really sit back and, obviously I'll be cheering for the Celtics. But rooting for LeBron undercover. I think he's chasing history, he's chasing legacy, and I'm so glad that I had an opportunity to compete against him.
I know that you weren't with the Celtics when they won the championship back with KG Paul and Ray Allen, but you did get to play with those guys. And a lot recently has been made about Ray Allen and his relationship with those other Celtics players. Just since you've been in the same locker room as them, what are your thoughts about the way that those former players are treating Ray Allen?
It's a catch-22. I can understand where they are coming from, because, look, when you put your heart, your soul into it and you're with the group and somebody goes to, your rival, it has an impact the same way with Westbrook and Kevin Durant. Now, the people who love each other sometimes can feud more so than people who don't never have to, their paths don't have to cross. I do believe in time they'll be able to come together and just, have that respect factor. But yeah, I can see both sides of it. Obviously, with free agency, you want to protect the player's right to be able to go wherever, they choose to go. And so I don't fault Ray for that. But just as far as the internal culture, you would have liked to seen him, reach out to, his brothers who he's won chips with and just say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. I know y'all might not agree with it, but I just want to be respectful and let y'all know that I'm parting ways.
If Ray could do that over again, do you think he would send out that text or pick up the phone and call KG and Paul and just say, hey, this is my decision and I hope you guys respect it?
Yeah, no, I don't think he would. I think Ray is a very strong stand-up individual. And, he's had tremendous success. And, he didn't have to do it. It wasn't a rule that you have to do it. But it's like an unwritten rule that you would like that, to go down. Because if it doesn't, then you have potential for these type of situations to occur. And they should, they had so many great battles together that I just don't want to see them, go out like that.
So we took care of the East. Now let's get to the West. The big topic of conversation, of course, is what Pop had to say about the Zaza Pachulia play against Kawhi Leonard. We know Kawhi's not going to be lacing him up tonight because of the ankle injury. Just what was your thoughts on that Zaza Pachulia play on the closeout?
Yeah, I didn't like the play. I don't think you close out that way. That's not proper form. A player is most vulnerable, when he's up in the air on his jump shot or either going to the rim for a finish. So you never want to see that happen. Now, I don't think Zaza is a dirty player. I think he's he's a hard-nosed, competitor. But even in those moments, I think, sometimes good, clean players or, tough competitive players can make a dirty play. I would say that flirts, that borders it. I've had teammates who saw the game like that and felt like they were willing to, go up under. If somebody hits too many jump shots, go up under them. But that's few and far in between. But I have had teammates who look at it that way.
It's an interesting perspective because last night I was watching the TNT show and Shaq and Barkley didn't like the play. And a lot of us people that haven't, played the game professionally, like myself, I watched that play and I had a hard time understanding why some people view that as a dirty play. Because if you look at it, it doesn't look like there's a lot of intent by Zaza to take out Kawhi Leonard, in my opinion.
Well, think about it. They had to put a rule in, to protect players in that spot. I mean, if you come down and you roll your ankle, you can literally be outgained. It's a very, very vulnerable play. Players have to be able to, raise up, shoot their jump shot, and be able to come down and hit the floor and not on somebody's foot. It's even though you might not think it's a big deal, it's the equivalent of a flagrant 2. It is a very, very vulnerable place for a shooter to be in.
Keyon Dooling with us, wrapping up with the former NBA player on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, the Jersey. So tonight's the big lottery. You, of course, went in the top 10 out of Missouri. You went 10 overall. And just take me back from what you remember about leading up as a player to that process of ultimately draft night and watching the draft lottery and all that stuff.
Yeah, a very exciting time. I was down at Draft Combine, so to see some of these prospects and to see the youth and the hope in their eyes, I'm excited for a lot of guys. I think this is an extremely deep draft, extremely young draft. There's a lot of talented players to be gotten in the top 15, top 18 picks. So I'm excited. Hopefully, the balls go, the way that everybody wants them to go. Hopefully, everybody, is happy. And so I'm excited for it. It's a great opportunity, and I think this is going to be an incredible draft class. What
do you say to some of these younger players when you get a chance to talk to them?
Well, I just try and keep it real with them. Let them know that it's tough, it's difficult. Try and, get them ready for the grind of it, the mental, the physical, the emotional part of it. And then the part off the court, just having to be on at 24 hours and, and also having to improve under these circumstances and conditions. A lot of guys are going to go from being the baby of the family to the patriarch of the family. And so it could be a lot overwhelming. And so you want to just equip them with the tools, the techniques to be able to navigate this space in a positive way.
You look at some of these young guards, you got Fultz, you got Ball, you got Monk, and Fox. Tell me some of these guys that you really like and what you like about their game.
Well, I like all of them. I think I like Fultz. I think he's like a D-Wade hybrid. He's going to be, incredible. I like Lorenzo Ball. I think he's a combination of Jason Kidd and Penny Hardaway. He makes all the plays. He's a great young talent. I like De'Aaron Fox, who's extremely quick. I like Dennis Smith, who's a year removed from his ACL, so he'll be more athletic in the NBA, and he's going to be a handful as well. I like all these young kids in the draft. There's some good wing players. There's a lot of talent in the point guard position. We got a lot of stretch fours. There's a lot of international talent because our game is so global. So this is a very deep draft, and I'm excited to see how the chips fall.
I can't even describe to you the anticipation in Philadelphia because over the last few years, this has really been, Christmas Day in May with this draft lottery. Just as a player that used to be in the league, you've seen teams build winning ways, all these different types of ways build winning teams. Just how do you view this Sixers team right now that's been through a lot the last few years?
Well, hopefully the process is healthy because I think he's a special player. I think Ben Simmons is going to be special. I think they intend to, play him at the point guard position. So you want to, even though if there's a high-level talented point guard there, you might want to consider getting some shooting to go alongside of him because he's going to be, having the ball in his hand, and he's really good at slashing and creating plays and things like that. So I think the 76ers has, the right pieces in place. I do still believe that they need some veteran pieces, some glue guys to kind of bring it all together. They might be able to, score well in free agency. You got to build your team not only through the draft, but you always have to have like that all-star or that superstar player on your team and somebody who's, pretty close to that caliber as well in order to win. So the Sixers are positioned, and worst case scenario, they have a lot of pieces to move to be able to acquire some other pieces that might get them to the promised land quicker.
Let's say if you were one of those free agents and you were a veteran free agent, would you view Philadelphia as a possible destination just because of the potential that they eventually have with some of these young pieces?
Absolutely. Especially, a guy like Kyle Lowry who's from that area, went to Villanova, who's a seasoned vet, who's an all-star, who could speed up those guys' curve. Veteran players speed up the learning curve of a team faster than any coach, GM, or president ever has. And so if you get the right mix of talented young guys who are too crazy or too ignorant to know what a big game is about, sometimes they'll play with that reckless abandon that you need to get over the hump. And if you bring those veterans in to kind of, play alongside of them, teach them how to be pros, teach them how to work on their body, teach them how to do the little things, I believe that's a good recipe for building your team.
Hey, Keyon, always love talking to you. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story today. We continue to wish you best of luck. Thanks so much, and keep up the great work.
Okay, thank you, Zach, man. Peace to you, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. There's Keyon Dooling joining us on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, the Jersey. Just what a powerful story. And we sometimes look at athletes, and you think, the athlete, they live the perfect life. They go through no adversity. But they're humans. They go through things too. And over the last few weeks, we had Kenny Anderson, who was sexually abused as a child. We had Keyon Dooling, who was sexually abused at the age of 7 years old. And I can't even imagine what that's like going through it. And you just see how long they had to hold it in, and then eventually they're able to get that help. And those two guys are just trying to help, and they're trying to be so benevolent and try to help those people right now that are going through the same problems. And just like what Keyon just said, he gets so many people reaching out to him. And like what Kenny said when he was on the show, he gets so many people reaching out to him. And it's awesome to see how those guys have turned something around that was never their fault whatsoever, was not in their control, and they're trying to keep on getting help for themselves and also trying to help others. Both of them have done a remarkable job dealing just with this terrible thing that unfortunately happened to them in their lives. 609-9199-D200. Always love, though, talking to Keyon. Okay, before we take the break, we got to get back to the little game that we're playing today, as we're going to take another spin on the NBA draft simulation machine. So let's get that thing going. We'll play the music, and here we go. So far, I got the Sixers the first pick the first time we did this. Second time, I got them 1-5. Third time, just 1. And the fourth time, 1-4. Let's see what chance number 5 has for us. Spin it. Okay. Not as good as the other time, but not awful. Coming in at 7, you got the Knicks. Coming in at 6, the Timberwolves. Coming in at 5, the Orlando Magic. Coming in at 4, the Sixers. Coming in at 3, the Celtics. Coming in at 2, the Lakers. And coming in at 1, the Phoenix Suns. So not awful. Oh, but I guess some people don't like it. And there is some booing going on. But if they walk away tonight with 4, you could still get a really good player at 4. You hear Keyon talk about some of those guards in this year's draft. Yeah, Fultz and also Ball won't be available. Lonzo Ball won't be available probably at number 4, but Fox will be. Monk will still be available, and that's what you have right now. So not bad. Through the first 5 tries, all picks in the top 5. You got to like that. And 4 of them, you get a number 1, and 2 of them, you get in 2 picks. You get a 1 and 5 and 1 and 4. So we'll see which way the ping pong balls do fall tonight. 6099199D200. This is the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920. The Jersey 540 is the time in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios. We got one more break. We're coming on back right after this.